Hey, my black and gold family, the Pittsburgh Steelers may have finally solved one of the biggest problems that has held this offense back for years. And if this new approach works the way the organization hopes, the passing game could look completely different in 2026. For several seasons, Pittsburgh has struggled to build a complete and reliable wide receiver room. It wasn't simply about lacking a superstar. The bigger issue was the lack of complementary talent around the top target, making the offense easier to defend and forcing opposing defenses to focus almost all of their attention on one player. That imbalance limited the production of the entire passing attack and prevented the Steelers from becoming the explosive offense many fans wanted to see. Looking back over the past few years, the numbers tell the story. Last season, only one Steelers wide receiver finished with more than 400 receiving yards. The previous season wasn't much different, with no receiver hitting that milestone either. Even George Pickens, who is clearly one of the league's most talented young receivers, struggled to produce elite statistics in Pittsburgh because defenses consistently rolled extra coverage in his direction. Without enough reliable weapons beside him, opponents could dedicate additional defenders to slowing him down, making life far more difficult for both the quarterback and the offense as a whole. The Steelers have experienced what a balanced receiver room looks like before, back in 2020. Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Deontay Johnson formed one of the NFL's deepest receiving groups, with 3 different players finishing with at least 800 receiving yards. James Washington also contributed valuable production as a deep threat, giving the offense another dangerous option. That depth forced defenses to respect multiple targets instead of focusing on just one player. Since then, Pittsburgh has never truly recreated that level of balance, despite different combinations of receivers entering the roster over the following seasons. Now, the organization believes it finally has a chance to restore that balance. Instead of relying on a single dominant playmaker, the Steelers have assembled a group built around different skill sets that can complement each other. DK Metcalf brings elite speed, physicality, and the ability to stretch defenses vertically. Michael Pittman Jr. offers reliability, strong hands, physical catches, and the ability to move the chains in critical situations. Rookie Jeremy Bernard arrives with versatility, route-running intelligence, and impressive yards after catch ability. Rather than asking one receiver to carry the offense, Pittsburgh appears to have built a unit where each player fills a specific role. That variety could become especially important with Aaron Rodgers leading the offense. Rodgers has always been at his best when he has multiple trustworthy options available instead of forcing the football to one receiver. Metcalf's ability to threaten defenses deep should create more space underneath. Pittman's precise routes and contested catchability give Rodgers a dependable target on third downs and inside the red zone. Bernard's versatility allows him to line up in multiple positions while creating opportunities after the catch, giving the offense another layer of unpredictability that has been missing for several years. Metcalf's combination of size and speed forces defenses to respect the deep ball every single snap. Whether he's running go routes, posts, slants, or screens, defenders cannot afford to lose track of him. Pittman complements that perfectly because he thrives in situations where precision matters more than speed. His route running, physicality, and ability to win contested catches provide exactly the type of security blanket Rodgers has often relied on throughout his career. The chemistry between those two skill sets could become one of the biggest strengths of Pittsburgh's passing attack this season. Jeremy Bernard may ultimately become one of the most intriguing pieces of the entire group. Coming out of Alabama, he arrives with a reputation for intelligence, toughness, versatility, and professional preparation. The expectation is that his understanding of route concepts and ability to line up across multiple positions could allow him to earn Rodgers' trust much earlier than many rookie receivers typically do. Bernard also provides value after the catch thanks to his vision and awareness, giving the Steelers another weapon capable of turning short completions into significant gains. The receiving room doesn't stop with those 3 names either. If both Bernard and Wilson develop quickly, Pittsburgh could field one of its most complete and complementary receiver groups since the 2020 season. The talent may not rank as the very best in the NFL on paper, but the combination of different strengths could make this unit far more effective than many people expect. Of course, there are still important questions that haven't been answered yet. Much of this optimism depends on the younger receivers proving they can contribute consistently once the regular season begins. If Bernard and Wilson become legitimate rotational weapons, the Steelers' offense could finally have the depth and flexibility it has lacked for years. But if either player struggles to establish himself, Pittsburgh may once again find itself searching searching for answers at one of the most important positions on the field. Do you believe this new wide receiver group is finally good enough to transform the Steelers' passing offense? Or do you think Pittsburgh still needs to add another veteran before Week 1? Another factor that cannot be ignored is the importance of fit within Mike McCarthy's offensive system. Building a successful receiver room isn't always about collecting the biggest names. It's about putting together players whose strengths complement one another and give the quarterback answers against every defensive look. That's exactly what Pittsburgh appears to be trying to accomplish. Instead of relying on one receiver to dominate targets every week, the offense could become much more difficult to defend because every player brings a different element to the passing game. Aaron Rodgers has built a Hall of Fame career by identifying defensive weaknesses before and after the snap. His greatest offenses have rarely depended on forcing the football to one player over and over again. They succeeded because Rodgers always had multiple trustworthy options available. If the defense took away the deep ball, he had possession receivers underneath. If linebackers cheated forward, the tight end became available down the seam. If cornerbacks played aggressively, back shoulder throws became nearly impossible to defend. That flexibility is exactly what the Steelers hope to recreate with this new receiving corps. Pat Freiermuth also deserves to be part of this conversation because he could quietly benefit as much as anyone from the improvements around him. Freiermuth may see more favorable matchups over the middle. His ability to attack the seams and serve as a reliable target on critical downs fits naturally with Rodgers' strengths and with the concepts Mike McCarthy has traditionally featured in his offenses, rather than being the primary focus of opposing defenses. Freiermuth could become an even more efficient weapon simply because the attention is spread across so many different threats. Depth remains the biggest unanswered question entering the season. That concern is impossible to ignore. The Steelers appear willing to give Jeremy Bernard and Roman Wilson every opportunity to prove they belong in meaningful roles. But behind those young players, the proven experience becomes much thinner. If one of the starters were forced to miss time, Pittsburgh could quickly find itself relying on players who have not yet established themselves as dependable NFL contributors. That uncertainty explains why the possibility of adding another veteran receiver has not completely disappeared. According to the discussion surrounding the roster, the Steelers may prefer to evaluate Bernard and Wilson throughout training camp before making any additional moves. If both young receivers develop the way the coaching staff expects, Pittsburgh may feel completely comfortable entering Week 1 with the current group. However, if either player struggles to earn a consistent role, bringing in an experienced veteran could become a realistic option before the regular season begins. Several names have been mentioned as potential fits, depending on exactly what the Steelers would be looking for. If the team wanted additional speed, players with vertical playability could become possibilities. If they wanted another versatile offensive weapon capable of moving around the formation, there are experienced options available for that role as well. And if the priority became adding a veteran whom Aaron Rodgers could immediately trust because of experience and route running discipline, there are still accomplished receivers on the market who could make sense under the right circumstances. None of that necessarily means Pittsburgh plans to make another move, but it does show the front office has flexibility if camp reveals another need before opening day. For the first time in years, the Steelers are entering a season with what appears to be a thoughtfully constructed receiver room instead of one built around a single playmaker. Every projected contributor fills a specific purpose. Metcalf provides explosive plays and forces defenses to respect the deep ball. Pittman offers consistency, physicality, and reliability in crucial situations. Bernard introduces versatility and intelligence that could help him develop chemistry with Rodgers much sooner than most rookies. Roman Wilson brings another vertical element that can stretch defenses from the slot. Freiermuth remains a dependable option over the middle, giving Rodgers another trusted target when plays break down or coverage dictates quick decisions. That doesn't automatically guarantee the Steelers will have one of the NFL's elite passing attacks. Success will ultimately depend on health, chemistry, execution, and how quickly the younger players adapt to the speed of the professional game. But compared to where this offense stood over the past several years, the blueprint looks far more complete. Instead of asking one receiver to overcome double coverage every Sunday, Pittsburgh may finally have enough complementary talent to attack defenses from every level of the field. If that happens, this offense could become far more balanced, and the Steelers may finally leave behind the wide receiver problems that have limited this team for far too long. The biggest reason for optimism isn't that the Steelers suddenly assembled the most talented wide receiver room in football, it's that they finally appear to have built a group where every player has a clearly defined purpose. For years, Pittsburgh's passing game often felt predictable because too much responsibility fell on one receiver. Defenses knew where the ball was likely to go, adjusted accordingly, and forced the offense to search for answers that simply weren't there. This season has the potential to be different because opposing defenses won't be able to focus on taking away just one weapon. Imagine what that means on a week-to-week basis. Aaron Rodgers has Michael Pittman Jr. available on intermediate routes and contested catches. If linebackers begin dropping deeper into coverage to account for those crossing routes and seam concepts, Pat Freiermuth becomes an even more attractive option working through the middle of the field, and if defensive coordinators become too aggressive trying to pressure Rodgers, Jeremy Bernard's ability to create yards after the catch could turn short completions into explosive gains. That is the kind of offensive balance Pittsburgh has been searching for, and it's exactly why there is so much excitement surrounding this new-look receiving corps. What also stands out is how intentional these additions seem to be. This doesn't feel like a collection of talented players thrown together in hopes that everything somehow works out. Every receiver fills a different responsibility within the offense. Metcalf forces defenses to respect his rare combination of size and speed. Pittman brings consistency and physical football. Bernard offers versatility that allows him to line up almost anywhere. Roman Wilson provides another vertical element from the slot. Together, they create a much more flexible offense than Pittsburgh has fielded in recent seasons. Of course, training camp will ultimately determine whether this vision becomes reality. Practice is where Rodgers will begin developing chemistry with his new targets. Timing, trust, and communication cannot be built overnight, regardless of how talented the players may be. Fortunately for Pittsburgh, one reason there is confidence surrounding Jeremy Bernard is because of his reputation for preparation and football intelligence. Coming from Alabama, he enters the NFL with experience in a highly competitive program that has consistently produced professional-ready receivers. That doesn't guarantee immediate success,